Welcome to Lesson 12, Viscosity and Volcano Type. In this lesson, students set up an investigation to determine which substances are more viscous than others and how that affects the types of volcano they form. Let's look down at the standard that this ties into for a few minutes. You can pause and read that at your leisure. And moving back up to the beginning of the lesson, those are the outcomes. And in your Getting Started or your Engaged section of the lesson, students examine pictures of volcanoes and think about the relationship and what they look like and how they formed. There's some volcano cards that you can distribute at this time. 12.1 is an Investigating Viscosity and Volcano Type lab. First, you want to introduce the word viscosity and viscous. Students then compare a variety of combinations of substances, and those are listed here on this slide, and they are also in your book. Again, we encourage you to go over this several times yourself before trying to explain it to students, or you can end up with kind of a big mess. It comes together at the end of the lesson when groups compare their answers, but in order to do that, you need to make sure all of your groups are doing the inquiry in the same way. So you may want to give students a chance to discuss how you might compare the viscosity of these items, and then as a group come up with one method. All right, let's take a look at the book as we go through this. There, of course, is your very important background knowledge. Lots of prep for this if you are going to pour out all your tiny little portions of substances first. You may decide that you want to do that as you go, and you will need your hot pot back out because you will be heating some of these substances. Now, a word about the actual investigation. Your students will be pouring these substances onto a piece of wax paper, a slope, similar to the one you used in your last inquiry. Students will then be comparing the rate of flow for several different substances. In some cases, it's different substances. In some cases, it's the same substance at different temperatures. And you'll want students to come up with their own procedure for this. However, in the end, you'll be comparing all of the groups' notes and data. So after students come up with their ideas for a procedure, you'll want to bring the class back together so that you come up with one class procedure to follow. And of course, you can use the book or have students come up with their own. One thing to be cautious about, if students are tempted to measure how long it takes for the substance to reach the bottom of the slope, be careful because some of these substances are so thick they don't flow at all. Might be better to have students measure how far the substance flows in a given amount of time, maybe 5 seconds. That way you won't be staring at something for a long time and having nothing happen. So after students have had a chance to test 2 variables, they then gather all the variables together as a class and make some conclusions about what they've learned. And there are students can use these reflection questions to guide them. And at this time, students will go back to those volcano cards that they saw at the beginning and make comparisons and try to see how that connects to viscosity. In the readings, which are located at the end of the lessons, students will learn how this viscosity affects these volcano types, and they'll take a closer look at each of the 3 types of volcanoes, your shield, composite, and cinder cone volcanoes. Also, there's an interesting article, which again you can use for content reading, however you want to use it at the end of that lesson. And before you move on, you'll want to, I'm showing you the slides that we've put in here, you'll want to make a wax model of the 3 different types of volcanoes, and the directions to do that are in your teacher's edition, in your reflection section. And this was something that I never did in training, but I discovered it on my own and was absolutely amazed at how how accurately these little models reflect what the volcano types look like. And if you put a piece of blue construction paper up behind them and get down eye level with them and take pictures of them with your cell phone, they look like real volcanoes. So you will want to incorporate that with your learning when students are working on the reflections in this lesson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back for the next lesson.